Elliot Graye felt it before he understood it. The moment the door of Blackridge Manor closed behind him, something shifted, not in the house, but in the space around him, like the world outside had quietly sealed itself away. The sound of the door didn't echo naturally. It lingered, stretched, almost as if it didn't want to fade. The air inside was thick, suffocating, pressing into his chest with every breath, making each inhale feel slower, heavier, like something unseen was resisting him. His flashlight flickered faintly as he raised it, the beam cutting weakly through the darkness, but never fully claiming it. The shadows along the walls didn't scatter or soften, they held their shape, dense and unmoving, pooling into corners like something collected there on purpose. Elliot took a step forward. The floor creaked beneath him, sharp and loud, but the sound didn't feel like it belonged to him. It felt like a response. Another step, and the creak came again, slightly delayed, slightly off, like the house was repeating his movement rather than reacting to it. His grip tightened around the flashlight as his pulse began to rise, not from panic yet, but from something deeper, instinct. The kind that doesn't explain itself, only warns. Then it happened. Not a sound. Not a movement. A feeling. Sudden and absolute. He wasn't alone. Elliot turned quickly, the beam of light snapping across the walls, searching, demanding something real. But there was nothing there. Just shadows. Still. Silent. Exactly where they should be. And yet, something about them felt wrong. Not because they moved, but because they didn't. As if they had already stopped before he even thought to look. The manor didn't just feel different. The deeper Elliot went, it became different. Subtly at first, almost unnoticeable, like a detail slipping out of place in a dream. The hallway stretched longer than it should have, the distance between doors widening without explanation. The walls seemed closer in some places, further in others, as though the space itself was shifting in quiet, careful adjustments. Elliot slowed his steps, his breathing more controlled now, but his heart beat louder than ever, echoing in his ears. The shadows had begun to change. They no longer clung passively to surfaces. They gathered. Thickened. Rising slightly from the walls in ways that shouldn't have been possible. At the edge of his vision, something stood. He froze instantly, his body locking before his mind could catch up. Slowly, carefully, he turned his head. Nothing. Just darkness pressed flat against the wall. But he knew what he had seen. He moved again, one slow step forward. And there it was again. A shape. Taller this time. Narrow. Almost human. His flashlight flickered violently, the beam cutting out for less than a second. But in that second, something moved. Not quickly. Not suddenly. Slowly. Deliberately. When the light returned, the hallway was empty. But Elliot's chest tightened as realization set in, cold and undeniable. They weren't appearing. They were already there. And they were learning how to stay unseen. Somewhere, deep in the silence, a sound broke through, faint, uneven, unmistakable. Breathing. Not his. Never his. The whispers didn't arrive, they revealed themselves. As if they had always been there, buried beneath the silence, waiting for him to notice. At first, Elliot thought it was the house settling, the faint groan of wood shifting under age and neglect. But then it layered. One sound became two. Two became many. Soft, overlapping murmurs that didn't follow any pattern, didn't belong to any single direction. Elliot stopped moving entirely, his body frozen as he listened. The voices grew clearer. Sharper. And then they spoke his name. Not in unison. Not cleanly. But broken, scattered, repeated again and again from all around him. Elliot turned slowly, his flashlight trembling now, the beam dragging across the walls of the study. And that's when he saw them clearly. The shadows weren't flat anymore. They stood upright, pressed against the walls like figures frozen in place. Their outlines were wrong, too defined, too deliberate, like something trying to imitate the shape of a human without fully understanding it. One of them shifted. Just slightly. But enough. Its form leaned forward, its shape stretching, sharpening, as if it was stepping closer without leaving the wall. The whispers surged instantly, louder, urgent, filling the room, filling his head. Elliot staggered back, his breath breaking into panic, his heart pounding violently against his chest. They weren't just there. They were watching him. Focusing on him. Reacting to him. And in that moment, the most terrifying thought settled in. They knew he could see them. The decision to leave came too late. Elliot turned, moving quickly now, his steps uneven, his breath sharp and uncontrolled. But the hallway he entered wasn't the one he remembered. It was narrower. Darker. Wrong. The walls felt closer, pressing inward as if the space itself was closing around him. His footsteps echoed out of rhythm, too fast, too loud, like something else was following, just out of sync. Then it happened. A touch. Cold. Immediate. Intentional. Elliot stopped instantly, every muscle locking in place. His breath caught in his throat as a slow, creeping dread spread through him. He didn't want to turn. But he did. The shadow had left the wall. It extended toward him, forming something that resembled an arm, but its shape shifted unnaturally, edges dissolving and reforming as it reached. It hovered for a moment, just inches from him, as if studying him. Then it made contact. Elliot gasped, but not from pain. From invasion. Something forced its way into him, not through his body, but through his mind. Emotions flooded him all at once. Crushing, overwhelming, unbearable. Fear so deep it felt endless. Loneliness so vast it swallowed everything else. Desperation that clawed at his thoughts like it had no beginning and no end. He stumbled back violently, ripping himself away, but the feeling didn't stop. It stayed. Inside him. Breathing with him. And as he looked back at the shadow, one truth became impossible to deny. It hadn't just touched him. It had reached inside him. The staircase felt like it had always been there. Waiting. Elliot didn't remember choosing to go down, but he was already descending. Each step felt heavier than the last, the darkness below thick and consuming, swallowing the weak beam of his flashlight as if it refused to reveal what waited beneath. The air grew colder, sharper, but not empty, never empty. When he reached the bottom, the space opened into something vast and deeply wrong. The chamber stretched far beyond what the house above could contain, its walls covered in markings that twisted subtly when he wasn't looking directly at them. Symbols that didn't belong to any language he knew, yet felt disturbingly familiar. But nothing compared to what stood at the center. A void. Not darkness. Something deeper. Something that consumed light completely, leaving nothing behind. It didn't reflect. It didn't exist the way anything should. Around it, the shadows gathered. Dozens of them. Standing. Facing inward. Still. Like they were waiting. Like they had always been waiting. Elliot felt it then. The pull. Not on his body, but on something inside him. Something deeper than thought, deeper than instinct. Drawing him closer. The whispers returned, louder than ever, but different now. Not calling. Not observing. Begging. And in that moment, Elliot understood. This place wasn't haunted. It was open. And whatever existed beyond that void had been waiting for. Something like him. Elliot tried to resist, but resistance didn't exist anymore. His body felt distant, unresponsive, like it no longer fully belonged to him. The shadows moved together now, closing in, their forms sharpening, becoming more defined, more solid, yet still unmistakably wrong. The whispers weren't around him anymore. They were inside him. Pressing. Overlapping. Screaming without sound. Then the darkness reached him again, and this time, it didn't stop. It poured into him, flooding his mind, spreading through his thoughts like something alive. Elliot gasped, his vision distorting, his surroundings bending and collapsing as he felt them, every single presence, pushing forward from within him. He could feel their fear. Their endless waiting. Their desperation to exist beyond whatever place they had been trapped in. His memories blurred, his identity slipping, fragmenting under the weight of something far too vast to hold. He tried to hold on to himself, but there was too much. Too many. His body trembled violently as the shadows forced their way through him, anchoring themselves, using him, reshaping him into something else. And in the final moment before he disappeared completely, Elliot understood the truth with terrifying clarity. He hadn't found the house. The house had found him. And now, he was the door. When silence returned to Blackridge Manor, it didn't feel empty. It felt settled. Complete. The kind of silence that follows something final. The shadows no longer shifted or flickered. They stood still now, perfectly defined, arranged along the walls with unnatural precision. Watching. Waiting. No longer hiding. And among them stood something new. A figure that didn't blur or distort. Its shape was solid. Human. Familiar. But wrong in a way that couldn't be explained. It didn't move. It didn't need to. There was awareness in its stillness, something patient, something knowing. It faced forward, as if it could see beyond the walls of the manor, beyond the darkness itself. And though it never spoke, never moved, there was an unmistakable presence in it. Recognition. Understanding. The house was no longer just a place that held something unnatural. It had become something else entirely. Something active. Something ready. And somewhere within that endless stillness, it waited. Because it knew, eventually, someone else would open the door.